危ねえがその脳天今度という今度こそ吹き飛ばしてやる。
Welcome back, nerds. Fino here with a guide for Sugitani Zenjuubou. She's a 3-star general pool archer who becomes playable with the release of White Castle by Day, Black Castle by Night, which is the event coming after Wanjina World Tour. However, she first appeared back in Trom as a purely story character, just a design with no gameplay, not even a giant ghost. Well, now she's got some interesting tricks up her sleeve, though on release, interesting may not exactly mean good. Sugitani's first skill is Sniping Environment. This is a 3-turn Buster and Buster crit buff. That second effect sits at a meaty 50%, which is pretty good for a low rarity servant. By the way, Zenjuubou is the character's first name, but I'm just gonna say Sugitani since it's less of a mouthful. Skill 2 is Disengage, Reloading. This is a cleanse that comes with a 5-turn recurring effect. Every turn she gets a 5-turn crit damage buff, but it's expended with the first crit that comes out. It's also a stars per turn effect. Sugitani very obviously favors a Buster crit playstyle, and while I generally have a distaste for hit-based buffs, I will admit this is a decent way of working in these snipers, take your shot and fuck off playstyle without kneecapping her, unlike the other bit of flavor in her kit, but we'll get to that in a minute. The last of Sugitani's standard skills is Camouflage Sniping. It's a package of a 3-hit evade, 3-turn Buster star absorption, and a recurring effect to give her 15% buff success every turn for 3 turns. Only the absorption scales with levels, making it the lowest priority on that front, though something you still want for follow-up. What does Sugitani need buff success for? That would be her Noble Phantasm, shooting with 2 bullets. This is a single target Buster attack with a bunch of chance-based effects. 85% chance for sure hit, and 2 separate 55% chance rolls for NP damage. Her overcharge is 70% chance for a single turn of arts and Buster buffs with each rolled separately. Sounds pretty good for a 3-star, doesn't it? You pop skill 3 and then farm the interest for 3 turns before hitting enemies with your full buff suite. Those buff success procs last for 5 turns, so you have a window where you can leverage a full stack setup for consecutive turns. Right? Were it only so convenient. The first and most major problem is that I left out one detail. You see, out of the box, Sugitani's NP purges all of her buff success stacks. This puts you back at square one every time you take your shot. It's a classic example of a servant's flavor putting a pointless burden on their gameplay. Reloading a musket takes forever. Get it? It's a lot less funny once you realize your reward for dragging Sugitani through 3 turns of setup is to do all that bullshit again. But now you have to contend with her cooldowns and somehow build up another NP in time. At that point, I'd be begging to switch to the Immortal team for consistency if nothing else. So on release, Sugitani is a fairly impractical servant to use, and I'd steer clear. This miserable state of affairs will last for over a year until she gets her interlude in late November 2026. This is the same campaign that gives Zenobia her legendarily useless upgrade, by the way. Sugitani's, though, is a real banger. First of all, it's an NP upgrade, so that's more damage as a matter of course. Secondly, it gets rid of that awful self-purge. So once you ramp Sugitani up, the only thing that'll stop her is her buffs timing out. This alone makes her actually usable. But wait, there's more. Now there's also a 20 star dump. This makes it so that Sugitani doesn't need quite as much babysitting in the star income department, and in combination with her income skill and Buster absorption, you'll have follow-up potential even if you whiff the NP Buster Brave Chain. On top of all this, she gets a fixed magnitude anti-king effect. It only applies to the NP itself, but there are a fair number of Saber Kings in the game. The Artorias, the Neros, Siegfried, Caesar, Altera, Fergus, Rama, Maeve, the Trunk Sisters, Theseus, Charlemagne, and Richard. Several Berserkers too, like Morgan. While anti-king isn't as broadly useful as one of those anti-attribute or anti-alignment effects, it's a wide enough pool that I wouldn't feel bad about keeping Sugitani ready in case one of them shows up as a boss. Most of my experimenting with this unit happened after I got her upgrade, so just keep that in mind going forward. One nice thing I found is that once you get off the ground, you can actually coast off the momentum generated by her Noble Phantasm for a turn, maybe 2 if you get good card RNG. Sugitani has a very decent loadout to take advantage of free-floating stars, and you can take the opportunity to lay into your target for follow-up damage or resource generation. As for her 2-tap potential, she has another baked-in tool, Independent Action EX for extra crit damage. Putting crit damage command codes on her Buster cards will also give her extra reach, so get to unlocking those slots. Oh, I alluded to this in kind of a roundabout way, but Sugitani needs her Noble Phantasm to bust her Brave Chain, so if you can't land that for damage or a Mighty Chain for resource generation, things may get rough. Really the biggest issue with this servant at the moment is her complete and total lack of any batteries. Even though Sugitani doesn't get sent back to the buff poorhouse after every NP, she does still have to contend with the charge poorhouse. To this end, her ideal supports trend in an expensive direction. I'd consider double coin Sky of Light to be inevitable for high-end applications due to Sugitani's charge needs. Thankfully, you can at least capitalize on Quinn's cooldown reduction to have extended coverage or double stacked buffs, making Sugitani even more threatening during her burst window. Instead of waiting for a natural round of cooldowns, you could also cash out by swapping an Oberon once your coins are depleted. His injection of damage, charge, and stars comes at a huge cost, turning Sugitani into a paperweight at the end of the turn. But she doesn't have great tools for mustering a second wind in the first place, once your buffs expire, so you may as well liquidate and let your backline clean up what's left. For the older Stally playstyle, Merlin will help you buy time between NPs, and you can even rope in Castoria to do a pseudo-immortal team. For newer players, you can run the free SSR waiver and the friend point servant Shakespeare to muster the resources for your initial NP. To help out, you should expedite getting her starting charge of pen skill maxed out. It won't help you as much later on, since Coin's battery is a lumpy 50%, but down the road you'll have the option of swapping your appends to 4 or 5, depending on whether you need more crit damage or cooldown reduction, so you aren't stuck with it forever. For craft essences, Black Grill is the end goal as usual, but if you don't have it, something like the first day of filming with its combination of NP damage, buster, and starting charge is a good place to start. On release, Sugitani Zenjuubou is a novel but forgettable servant, hamstrung by the fact that her noble phantasm undercuts her momentum, but after her upgrade, she's fairly usable. The anti-king niche is the obvious improvement, but the fact that she has a new source of stars encourages you to chase consecutive noble phantasms, which you back up with big crits. One nice thing about post-upgrade Sugitani is that as she fully ramps up, her no-trait damage competes with all but the best 4-star archers. In fact, she actually does a little more than Tomoe Gozen in this state. But of course, the combination of this ramp-up time and her lack of batteries makes her early turn damage very inconsistent, and she's very heavily reliant on card RNG to build up a second volley. This, combined with the expensive nature of her supports, and the fact that you want to level 2 of her skills and one of her appends to a high level, makes it so that a new player may find her uneconomical. In that situation, an evocation archer may do less damage from turn 3 onwards, but their ease of access and straightforward skill sets might be more appealing. And despite being a reasonably good servant, especially for a rarity, her playstyle is inherently gimmicky, so endgame players probably won't be using Sugitani outside of kingslaying. Been a while since I did a story segment on one of these, hasn't it? Well, you're in luck today. Here's the history of Sugitani Zenjuubou. Sugitani was a sharpshooter during the Sengoku period, and one day he was given the job of assassinating a warlord that had been throwing his weight around. The warlord in question? Oda Nobunaga. So he waits in ambush at a mountain pass, loads 2 bullets into his musket, takes aim, and misses. A grazing shot at best, so he makes a run for it, and while he got away at first, the long arm of the Oda clan would find him in time. That's the gist of it. Not a lot of meat to Sugitani's story. But within Fate, Sugitani encountered someone during his escape, a renowned ninja by the name of Kashin Koji. So he goes, "Hey Kashin Koji, I need a disguise," which is like walking into a barbershop and saying, "Just fuck me up." So then Koji's like, "Okay, roll 63 beam." Her tastes are very singular, you see. And that's why the Sugitani in FGO is a woman. So how many of you plan to make Sugitani a central part of your roster? Me, I've got my own janky buster archers to contend with, so I'll have to sit this fight out. Oh, here's a fun fact I couldn't fit in the video proper. Sugitani is voiced by Yuko Goto, who played a lot of Moe Blob characters in the mid-20aughts and early 2010s. But Sugitani sounds a lot closer to the time she played herself as a motorcycle thug in Lucky Star. But yeah, thanks for watching, lads. Like if you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more servant guides, and come watch me on twitch.tv/Finotaisen, where I stream every weekend, 3 p.m. Pacific time. I post schedule updates on Discord whenever I toss any curveballs, so you may want to keep current that way. See you there. Oh, best servant contest on Sunday. You won't want to miss that.